how did you develop your style within that period? Were there specific questions you were asking yourself? Were there things that you were drawn to that created your style, or maybe there's an ethos behind it? Tell me a little about that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever thought very, very purposely about like exactly what direction I wanted my style to go in. And even now when I feel like I do draw or like create things in a more consistent manner, and I suppose like there is a style to it, but I never really feel like it's complete and I've like achieved the style that I want and that's what I stick to and it's always going to look the same. Like I always feel like pretty much with anything that I make that I'm always like iterating bit by bit on the style itself. So even when, I had a ton of free time to like try things out a few years ago and I was just sort of experimenting, like I don't know if I had this like goalpost or whatever or like anything that I was working towards as much as I was just sort of like taking in all these different types of influences and all these different art styles, and just sort of seeing what would happen if I tried to recreate those things on my own or like taking little pieces of this over here and mixing it with a thing over there. It's really just for me like more of a practice in like curiosity around like seeing art that I enjoy and art that I like, and then thinking to myself like, okay, if I sat down, could I just like recreate that on my own? Like, am I able to, take certain elements of it and see if I can make that with the tools that I have at my disposal? And if not, then I'll start messing around and seeing how it is that someone gets to that stage. And I think just through the process of doing that kind of thing, you end up kind of like crafting your own style because you're inevitably going to be putting your own spin on the stuff that you're making because it's being drawn by your hand and it's being processed by your brain, and everything about it's going to have its own unique little spin about it. And I
Right.
think you just kind of do that enough times that certain things tend to stick, and then certain things come out in like a certain way when you go to make a piece of art for yourself or something that you want to be able to like share with the world. You're kind of like picking and choosing from all these little micro influences that you've gathered along the way.
I think that's so true. I think too many illustrators put pressure on themselves that you have to set this style and then you're stuck. This is it, and that sort of like prevents them from getting to it in the first place. And then when they do find something, then they feel like they're imprisoned by their style. Whereas I think if we look even at the masters, they were always iterating within their work, and the style shifted with us because our taste shifts, our what we like shifts over time. I mean, what I liked as a teenager is completely different from what I like now, and so my style should sort of evolve to take in those observations, because I think as illustrators, our style is the bridge between who we are and what we want to say. And this is sort of the language that we're using in that current period. I think you
Yeah,
make a
absolutely.
good point with, it's um, you find inspiration, then you imitate it, then you iterate, and then you innovate. So like the four eyes, as I call it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that it's exactly like you said. It would be kind of crazy to always stick to the same style. Or not like crazy as much as just like, at least for me personally, picturing having to always do the same thing over and over. I don't think I would be able to handle it. Like I'm a little bit too stir crazy and antsy to just always do the same thing over and over. Like in order to like keep my own attention, I've got to switch things up and I've got to find new ways of like communicating certain ideas or expressing myself. Because yeah, otherwise you're just gonna end up kind of doing the same thing over and over, and that's not a fun place to be.